I'm at what looks to be a pretty good table. In particular, we've got this player, MVLE Pry 99 from Brazil, who over 10 hands has played every hand and is opening a lot as well. Not to be racist or countryist or whatever, bigoted, but I have found that Brazilians tend to be not so great at poker. So this is, I think, a pretty marginal call here. My hand's not that great, but I'm in position, double suited, and I do have some money in the pot here. So I am going to take the flop. I think this is pretty close to one of the worst hands that I would call with on the flop. Just going to give up if he bets, and if he checks, I'm going to be pretty cautious about continuing. So he does make a very small bet, and all my outs are just so marginal that I am going to just lay it down. You can see this player over here, C-Swan. He doesn't have too many fishy stats yet, but he is from Greece. And if you click on Find This Player, right click and go to Find This Player, you can find him. He's searchable and he's just playing one table. So, while not definitive, this is an indication that he might be a little bit of a more recreational player. So I have labeled him as fish here. This player as well, if you search them, you see that they're playing like a tournament in a cash game, often to the fishier side. You'll also note that he posted to enter into the game. And you can see here that this player from Greece, Sis, 1957, potentially his birth year, he just called on the button. So in my notation, that is BOL for button open limp. And that as well is an indication that your opponent maybe is a little more passive or a little more loose. Usually winning players are going to do what Velapiva did here and either open raise or fold. So game selection is very important when you're playing poker, and you want to be at a table of all recreational players or whales or fish, and you have to be a little bit careful about playing with too many regulars. So I think I'm going to take a flop here. He's raised over half the opportunities to raise so far. He's here, Master K Poker. He posts and he posts. He's not even in the cutoff. He's in the hijack. He's under the gun +1. So I'm going to take a flop here. Not a terrible hand. Pretty competitive, probably against the sort of hands that the button is going to call with, and the poster is going to defend against the min raise with. Probably not a huge edge against the first in openers hand, but I should be getting enough value from the other players. And my hand is, it's got some nut potential here. I can make nut straights. I can make a nut flush. So I think it's a decent spot to call. And I am going to top up a bit here. So I like to enter at the table with minimum. But you can see this guy in particular, he's got $18, and so I'm going to just add on another 5, covering these 3 players who look potentially like they might be softer players, and approaching this deck. We'll see who wins the pot, but so I do like to make conscious decisions about how big my stack size is, and what I aim for is I try to be where the fish are. So if all the fish are short stacked, then I want to be short stacked. If the regs are short stacked and the fish are deep, then I want to be deep. Or if there are no regs, then I want to try to cover the table. So it depends. Basically, optimal stack size is a function of your opponent's stack sizes and your opponent's skill levels. And you know, some people, they just buy in max auto top up, which can be okay, but I think that is it's not optimal. It's an insufficient treatment of the problem. And while it is less important when you're playing a lower stakes game like this, I think this is something that if you were playing a high stakes game, this is an important concept that you should internalize. So now I kind of run down here, and I see a couple options. I could limp, or I could raise, and if I raise, I could raise to a certain amount. So I'm just going to limp in, and we'll see what happens here. A lot of my outs are non-nut, and multi-way, this could be problematic. But I do have a pretty big draw. I'm really concerned here that, I mean, for sure somebody has a higher flush draw. So wrap. I'm gonna lay this down. Yeah. I don't really know what this guy was going in on. 8-9-4-3. Wow, top set and the nut flush draw. So aces, no suit. And if he goes $1, I'll probably go 325 here. This is basically, yeah. Especially, he could be raising with some not so great hands, some hands that have a little more difficulty out flopping aces. I think if he pots it, I'll just push. Pot it myself. Not a great flop, but pretty decent turn all in all. Top set now. Actually, I was in bad shape on the flop. There you go, it's aces again. And I think it's a pretty clear 3-bet here to $3. You'll see this guy's pretty short, and not too much to say, really. Great flop, nut flush draw, overpair. And short SPR situation. I probably and I hold. Oh, nice. I open this hand. I'm gonna fold it. I really don't like these like high-low combinations. King, queen, 6-7. You want 4 cards that work together. So Yeah, just lay it down. I mean, I am double suited. I'm in the cutoff. I don't need an incredible hand to open, but I feel like there's sort of an above average chance of. I mean, neither of these players have three bet yet, but they're both like super loose aggressive. So, despite the fact that they haven't found a three bet yet, I still sort of suspect them of being capable of three betting pretty wide. And I don't really want to start building a big pot with king, queen, six, seven. Kind of interesting spot here. I do have a rundown, and I am gonna fold it. Maybe I could cold call. Um, at a position, and not really great relative position either. My hand doesn't. Uh, yeah, I'm just gonna fold. So one tactic that I like to use is just sit alone at all these tables. So by table starting, by sitting alone at all these tables, what you can do is play heads up against fish, and you can play games. I said earlier that Brazilians and players from Greece are often bad players, softer, easier to beat. Players from Russia and Eastern Europe, Bulgaria, for example, they are very frequently regulars. Just something I've noticed. I'm not too sure about this guy here just yet. Okay, he's Brazilian. You can see he's played 82% of hands over 11 hands. But then when I search him, he's four tabling, including Zoom. So that's an indication of a regular. So I'm gonna wait and see. This guy, Colombian, I'm probably not even gonna play him. Okay, I search him. He's on hide from search, and he doesn't open them the first hand, and just a couple indications that he might be a reg. So when you table start, when you sit down and people join, if a reg joins, then you just sit out. If he wants to quit, that'd be great too. I'll probably quit. Small pot anyway. We have pretty good flop here. Top set, dry board. So dry boards I use maybe a little bit smaller sizing. Could have two pair or draw. Pretty nice river card. And in spots like this where you have basically the nuts um, on the river, I like to go for larger sizing. I find that your opponent is going to call. Like basically, when you have an unbeatable or virtually unbeatable hand, the question is how often is your opponent going to call a big bet versus size better. He'll call a pot size bet enough of a percentage of the time you won't call a half pot size bet twice as often, because that's the question: is is how often are they going to call? They have to call roughly half as much as often. And this is really annoying when you quit somebody and so they sit down at another of your tables. So this guy too here, Wilson Harley, Costa Rica, maybe he's an American expat, not searchable. You are trying to get games where there are no regs. And I also like to play just one table at a time, because you do have to sort of focus what's going on, and you want to be checking out hands that were played. So for worthy of that, this guy called a raise with Queen 10 8-3, all hearts. I mean, we know that he's a pretty loose player. He's played 80. I can focus what's going on. And if my game's not ideal, right now this game is not ideal to me. It's not good enough. I've got two players here that I don't want to play against, one player that I'm not sure yet. I mean, I'll evaluate, and two players that I do want to play against. But I would rather be playing heads up against a bad player, so that's why I do have these 6 tables, 5 other tables open. So I can potentially trade this game for a better game. And what I'd probably do if I got the heads up game that I want against a really bad player is I would sit out this game, because it's still playable, right? There's still, I can still beat this game. I can beat a heads up game for a much better rate, especially because game speed is going to be a lot quicker, right? I'm going to play, a lot more hands in an hour when I'm playing heads up, and so I will get in more spots where I can get the money in. Three-handed in a pretty good game, and pretty sure I'm gonna call here, getting 2-1. Not a great flop. Opponent was raising a lot, which is why I 3-bet with this strong hand, and you end up having pretty nice equity there. When you are in these low SPR situations, there was only one pot bet left. You do have to be inclined to stack off with a wider array of holdings. Here I flop, middle set on a very dry flop, and I could have even sized maybe smaller on the flop, Obviously a great turn. Beaten only now by 9s full or quad 5s. With so really bad river card. There's a lot of bad river cards there. And one thing about this game right now is I am in great. I do have a pretty good seat with the more passive player behind me and position on the more aggressive player. I don't see a lot of point in betting with this hand. It's not really strong enough to try to get value from anything. Pretty easy call, I think. One, I don't need a lot to call in that situation. So I have tagged. So my color scheme is this hand's close, but I'm gonna fold it. So for my color scheme, yellow means fish, green means whale, and red is regular. Now I've made sort of a snap judgment about this guy, that he is a regular. He sat down with 100 big blinds and he is playing 2 tables. So these are just 2 indications that they might be a reg player. He's from Greece, and not to be racist or bigoted, but players from Greece are often recreational players, gambler type people. So top pair, second kicker here out of position. Not really strong enough to value bet. Maybe slightly above average in strength, but I am out of position. So I don't really want to bet marginal holdings. So you can see the stats here on Rod Guifa from Brazil. Now Brazil is another place where often a player from Brazil is going to be a little more of a recreational player. You can see these stats are just absolutely incredible from my perspective. So 80% VPIP, 8% raise. Now only 26 hands, but this is just your archetypal loose passive player.